Welcome everybody to the Audit and Risk Committee meeting. The meeting's now underway, and this morning Councillor Swiggs presented a Karakia, so that'll carry over for the rest of the day. Wondering if Councillor Karakia, if you could give us a Mihi Whakatau, that would be great. Thank you.
E mihi atu kia koe te tiamana, ko tēnei mihi e hui e tākata o te hui o Tarotake Tuaru Committee. Nō reira, ka me nui ki te mihi atu ki tō tātou matanui te raki, ko e te timataka me te whakautiko o tau katoa. Nō reira, ka mihi au ki te kai homai o ka mea pai katoa. E mihi atu mo tō mana whenua o te pātawhi tō te kohaka kaikai a waro, no maru a moko tere, moko whakaruru au o nai tua huriri. Nō reira, e koutou rā, e nā manuhiri a tuaraki mō tō kaimahi o te tai au kaunihiro Waitaha, mihi atu, me tō koutou. Nō reira, e mihi atu kia koe o au raki mauka mō tō tēpu e tū mai. O reira koutou rā, tēnā koutou, e mihi atu kia koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. Welcome to Graham McGlynn, our independent member, and also welcome to Chantal from Audit New Zealand. Just a reminder that the meeting's being recorded today. Previously, only the audio was made available online, but today both audio and video recordings will be published. In future meetings, the meetings will also be live streamed on via YouTube. I've been informed that we have a quorum present, and I'm pleased to declare the meeting open. In terms of business, when we come to item 5, we'll briefly discuss a matter there. In terms of apologies, I've received an apology from Councillor Southworth, and at this stage, Councillor Ward's absent, and he may arrive later. Are there any conflicts of interest? We're not aware of any. There's no deputations today, or petitions, or public forums. In terms of extraordinary and urgent business, we have a matter that Councillor Swiggs wishes to raise, and he's raising that as a minor matter relating to the general business of the Audit and Risk Committee. Councillor Swiggs.
Okay, so I think it would be prudent to just mention that this is the Audit and Risk Committee to ask under minor matters for, and I understand there is a report, but just the report to come back to this committee just around the GPS data and the reporting lines up and how that interrelates with our risk and health and safety. So that was what I just wanted to raise here. I don't want to have a big discussion about it, but I'd like that to come back to us at the next meeting, and I think it's prudent for us to raise that here today.
Thank you. I'll just ask Giles to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Swiggs. Yeah, we're well aware of the issue. We felt that given this was a meeting arranged specifically to endorse the annual report before it goes to Council, that it was more appropriate to bring the full information on the issue you raised to the next Audit and Risk Committee, which is in November, and that will be covered under both the health and safety and the assurance items.
Thanks, Giles.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, and that's really good to hear. But are we just able to make sure that we mention that we've just raised that in the minor matters, so that we can just have that recorded at least?
Thank you. I see Councillor Deshay is online as well. Councillor Deshay, you had your hand up. I'm just wondering what...
Yeah, Dion had actually asked the question I was interested in. So, yeah, I agree with what he's saying, that it should be noted, and look forward to getting some answers, I guess, in November.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Thanks very much. We'll now move to item 7. Sorry. Item 6, notices of motions, no notices of motion. Item 7, the report item, the annual report review. And I'm wondering if, Brian Elliott, if you could come to the table to help answer any questions. Just briefly, just to confirm that this report forms the basis of the annual report for the year 2023 and 2024, and that just restrict questioning to that particular year. The recommendations are there, and the purpose of today is to endorse the draft annual report, subject to any changes, as requested by Audit New Zealand, prior to the Canterbury Regional Council considering adoption of the reports at our meeting on the 23rd of October. So we're in the final stages of liaising with Audit New Zealand, but there's not expected to be any significant changes between now and the 23rd of October. So they're just the key things. So are there any questions for Brian? I'll do, actually, I'll put the motion and then we'll no, look, questions first. Thank you. Yes.
Look, just a point of clarification around the dates. So 23, 24, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I'm a bit slow here, but in part of this, it's talking about 24, 25. And it's what I brought up actually at the pre-meeting.
So the issue of page 39, did you say?
Yes, yeah.
39?
Yeah.
And your concern was
Well, you,
on page 39, if you could, you were worried about the next steps reference to.
so that's the next step reference, okay. And all I was thinking is that 23, 24, we've had we've been considering it, and my thing was that in 24, 25, I thought it was implementation, not consider. Anyway, maybe this is semantics or whatever, but I just wanted to be sure because I saw something yesterday. I heard something yesterday about a particular bus route that was actually talked about, considered, but now it's not going to happen. So I just want to make sure that this is going to be implemented.
Okay. That's just a minor Tim, sorry. Tim Davies.
Kia ora, through you, Chair. This is referring to the Biodiversity Monitoring Program, which is a new program for Environment Canterbury. We haven't been doing specific biodiversity monitoring, and you may recall that there was a presentation on it, which is talking about a systematic way of going out and looking at the land cover, and then what the quality is of the plants and what we see in front of us through that monitoring program. The reference in here to the next steps talks about implementation. That's the implementation of that overall monitoring program, and as part of that, what we will be doing in the next year is considering you're quite right, Councillor Korako, considering the current monitoring that is done under a Mātauranga framework and how that can be brought in together with the monitoring, the biodiversity monitoring program. So it is It's considering how the current Mātauranga Māori monitoring that is done can be brought in together with a new biodiversity monitoring framework. So, and I think we can word that paragraph a little bit better to say that the implementation is about the biodiversity monitoring. In doing that biodiversity monitoring, we will be considering how we can integrate the current Mātauranga Māori monitoring that is being done into the same framework. Does that make sense?
Correct. And that answers your question. Thank you, Tim, for providing the answer. But I think Councillor Robinson has a similar query. Is that?
It was just back to that, because in the report itself it does say monitoring set out in the framework and it's phased implementation. So it's quite specific in there. So not as correct in his question, but yeah, thank you for your summary. I had the same question.
Okay, Charles.
If I could just attempt to clarify, this obviously is the annual report for the year ended 30th of June 24. Clearly, we are now on October the 10th. A lot has happened since the 30th of June, and there are a number of references in this report to when it was written, things we were expecting to happen or things that were underway or things that will happen during the rest of the financial year. For example, during 23-24, 4 new electric buses joined our public transport fleet and additional 17 electric buses are scheduled to join the fleet by the end of December. It is predominantly a backward-looking document, although it does, where appropriate, make some references to the future. What is put in terms of looking forward may, at this point in time, might not be a complete, accurate representation of the information we have currently. What the auditor does, I want to speak for the auditor, but what the auditor does is take a view about whether the reader of the annual report materially is be presented with a fair and accurate view of the Council's position as at the 30th of June. And so those things may obviously potentially be in conflict given what we know today, but they're not materially misstated.
Thanks, Giles. Are there any other questions? Councillor Swiggs.
And my apologies because I'm trying to find something else in the paper, but I've lost the reference. But it was around the consents and our deficit that we've had in our consent. And I apologies because I can't find the reference in this now. I read there that I remember reading, and I was a little bit surprised about the level of external consultants that we've had in our in the consenting part of the business, which would lead to the deficit. But I wasn't able to sort of see what level that was and whether there was any improvement over the year or through the annual report. Now, I'm not sure if that comes through the annual report, but I would have probably liked to have seen somewhere around the, what our moving forward, the external consultants, are we reducing the use of those? Are we improving or is it getting, are we using them more? So yeah, that was the question that I had from when I read that.
So again, this is predominantly backward looking. As has been reported to Council through other committees, there's significant work going on under our Sustainable Consents programme with the intention of reducing the use of external consultants and overall deficit in that consenting space, and most importantly, improving the performance. As has been reported in terms of the current financial year, that plan is going according to plan, or that work is going according to plan, with the objective of removing the backlog by the end of the current calendar year, and also ensuring that our ability to reduce the deficit and increase the compliance with the revenue and financing policy so that we recoup a higher percentage from user pays is on track. And that will continue to be reported through to the Regional Delivery Committee during the financial year.
So during the last financial year, that was improving. There was less consultants being used.
I think Brian may have more accurate information. But there was an increased deficit last year, and we asked for additional funding from council. But that was part of the plan to put in the Sustainable Consents Plan, with the aim of recognising that consultants were being overly used for lots of reasons, and we were also having to pay refunds because of the timeliness of the consenting process. That narrative should be in the annual report, but the plan going forward, as we have reported, is that we are seeing an improving trend in that direction, not only in performance, but also in outcomes we want to achieve, and the use of consultants coming down as a result of that.
Thanks, Giles. Any other questions? Councillor Robinson.
Just with regards to page 50 of the report, but 39 of the document, just the managing the coastal environment, there's a lot of detail in here, considering it's reflecting back, that I have, or most of us probably haven't seen before, with regards to, some of the information from surveys, seafloor surveys, and I know it's with partners, but considering we're a major player within that survey, I wouldn't expect to have seen some sort of data or information that was a bit more informative than, I guess, in retrospect, agreeing to it. Or, there's not much information in there for it being quite an important piece of work. So even if it's noted that we can have that information given to us in retrospect, because
I think that's probably the case. Tim, come to the table again. Thank you. Just where are we at with providing further information, perhaps at a later date on this? This gives a bit of a summary and oversight.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. There is coming to the Regional Delivery Committee the report on the Ionairo work, which is what this is referring to, in and around Banks Peninsula. So I just can't remember which date it is on the Regional Delivery Committee, but there is a report coming in on that.
It's next week. It's next week.
Is it?
Committee next week. Well,
I can't remember.
There is a committee meeting next week. I'm not sure if it's on the agenda.
No. So
I don't think it's on that agenda. It might be the following one.
Okay.
But it is scheduled for reporting in on that very important work, which I agree. Kia ora.
Great, thank you. And it was mentioned in this report. It was a highlight to have that work done as a joint government, regional council, process. So that was really quite good. Thanks, Tim. Any other questions? Graham, you've got any?
Just going into a bit of a accounting geeky moment, which I've discussed offline, and it's about the carbon credits. I sort of read the statements in there about what is available and for sale and valued.
Page. Sorry, can you page number?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Page, there's a number of pages, but 123. It starts on 122 of the big pack. Well, 192 moves through into 125. I've had a look into discussion with Brian offline, and I think the accounting for it is actually right, but I wonder whether there's wordsmithing may be able to be done, whether there's time this year or whether it's a point forward. I don't think it's material to the users of the accounts, but just to clearly define what carbon units are pledged effectively because of the valuation basis of the forest to be attached to the forestry valuation, and which ones are actually free to be dealt with by the council as at balance date. So I think there may be a wee bit of wordsmithing. The use of SAFE there may not be consistent with what other councils are using in the way it's quite defined. But it's just minor wordsmithing. I'm satisfied from discussion that there's no numerical problem with what's happening, but maybe we could better explain it. So both Giles, I think you read it also, and you could read it a number of ways. So I think it's just a wordsmithing area. Not material if it's too hard to do in this year, perhaps carry it forward.
Yep. Thanks, Graham. Brian, just one query really for clarification. Page 87, under sources of income, there's a little table there, which I don't recollect seeing before. I found it really quite interesting, which sort of describes the proportion of total rates to income and general rates per capita. There seems to be some consistency across the proportions of total rates to total income over the last few years, and even the general rate per capita portion of that. Is there anything that you could tell us about that? And I'm thinking, because there's always obviously a real issue about the size of our rates, but that's giving the picture. It gives a reasonable picture there in terms of how they are affecting our communities.
I think the takeaway from that chart is really that slowly over time, rates are becoming a larger proportion of total income. So I guess to some extent that's signalling that some of the user pays and grants related income is starting to tail off and drop away. And that may be something that Council wants to look at in future in terms of what are the balanced sources of funds for the Council, and particularly in terms of the revenue and financing policy discussions.
Right. Great, thank you. Chantal, I'm just wondering if you, sorry, did you have another question, Councillor Robinson?
It's regarding contaminated land. I'm just wondering if there's any...
Is there a page number?
Oh, sorry. 56 of the report. And just managing contaminated land. I know there's been audits done on, obtaining information on private and public contaminated land. And I'm just wondering if there's any data attached to that we can look over, please. '56. It's level of service 24.
Can I just say that these matters did come to the committee in the regional delivery, and the Court of Four reporting that we've already seen. So this is information that we have seen before, and it's kind of like a inclusion as for information as to how things were then reported. But if you need clarification on that, we can perhaps clarify that later. Yeah. No, it was. Yeah. Chantal, I was wondering if you, as from Audit New Zealand, could come to the table and perhaps identify any issues that you perhaps picked up in the report.
Morning, everyone. Just to let you know how we're going on the status of the audit, we are 96% complete with the audit. The majority of the work that we need to do is around final financial statement checks and final annual report checks in terms of amendments that we've asked for through the review. And we have a couple of questions on one performance measure, and we're just following up the valuer, your forestry valuation on one matter, not material, but just tidying it up in terms of understanding what's and documenting it through the file. At this stage, we intend on issuing an unmodified report. We've focused, in terms of the annual plan, our audit plan, on the risk of management override, the valuation of forestry and carbon credits, the valuation of property, plant and equipment, asset impairment, the national ticketing system, and prudent expenditure decisions. We are likely to have one item on your misstatement schedule of about 600,000, not material, around a disposal of an asset. We are in the process of checking an updated annual financial statement section for the amendments that have been processed, and we are waiting on an updated performance information section to check that adjustments that we've asked for have been processed. That's where we are.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
So we are well on track for the 23rd.
I was going to say, yeah, so 96%, so it's just got that little bit of checking
Yes.
to do. That sounds great. Are there any questions for Chantel? Stage? No. Oh, well, hopefully in the next few days you'll be able to resolve those issues, and presumably they will get included in either revision of this. Does this edit to this or not? Yeah, if there's minor changes, you know.
So as Chantal said, there's just some minor changes that are being discussed, and if appropriate will be made, and then the final report will come through to Council at the meeting on the 23rd of October for adoption, and then it will be published. I believe there'll be a caveat for any minor changes that need to be made. I think it's in our current recommendation for the Chief Executive to make those that don't materially impact on the annual report itself. But I think, as Chantal said, you're anticipating an unmodified opinion, or unqualified, given that I'm old school.
Yes, in layperson's term, yeah, unqualified.
That's what we like to hear. That's really good. Well, thanks, Chantal. You can step back, and we'll see you again in a few days.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If there not being any more questions, what we'll do is I'll read out the recommendation. We'll put the motion. I'll put the motion, and the motion's there up on the screen. That the Audit and Risk Committee receives the draft annual report and the draft annual report summary as attachment 7.1.3, and secondly endorses the draft annual report and draft annual report summary 23-24, subject to any changes requested by Audit New Zealand prior to the Canterbury Regional Council considering adoption of the reports on the 23rd of October. And thirdly, recommends to the Canterbury Regional Council that it adopts the draft annual report and the draft annual report summary. Do I have someone to move that, please? Moved by Graham McGlynn, seconded by Councillor Swiggs. Any further discussion? I just wanted to say a few things really in terms of reference to the annual report summary. And in terms of the narrative and the extent of work that the Council has undertaken during 23-24, it's pretty remarkable really when you read it. And I'm reading page 165, 166. You know, we've developed the regional planning framework in partnership. We have started the review of the regional policy statement. We have undertaken that policy statement and included within that time frame two fairly significant public consultations. One called What's Our Future Canterbury, and the other one, Let's Pick a Path. and they have provided some really good focus on what the public think about the draft and how we can proceed to do things in the future. And of course, the other thing picked up there is the consents applications, and we have acted quickly, or as quickly as we could, during that time frame to address the legacy consents that we had in place and that were causing us a lot of issues. As at the end of 23-24, we had resolved over 50% of the legacy issues, and it is expected that we'll clear the backlog by the end of 2024. And the note on page 165 is confirming that at this stage we are currently processing 70% of the new applications within the required timeframes. The other issue that we have pretty significant for us is completed the flood recovery work that's undertaken associated with the 2021 flood event, which was a Canterbury-wide flood event, and so that's a great achievement. It undertook that program with co-funding from the government, but it's about a $24.2 million program. At the same time, our river work, fairly significant, and certainly on our significant braided rivers, a lot of work was done with boom transition sites in terms of improving future flood resilience through weed clearance programs, and in association with that, some native planting as well, and pest management within that time frame. The Greater Christchurch Partnership, the Greater Christchurch Public Transport Service, we implemented the flat fare trial on July 2023, and that brought down the standard rate, $2 single zone for commuters as a trial, and that has resulted in 14.5 million passenger trips over that year, and that's nearly 3 million more than the 22-23 year. So that's pretty amazing, and it does indicate that by this pricing system and the flat fee and the simplicity of the system, it has worked. And of course, one of the big programs that we've been working on is the National Ticketing Service, and we're currently working on that and hope to roll that out later in the year and early next year to the first trial set up for that. And of course, the matter we raised in terms of the mapping of the seafloor ecosystems, that was done across Banks Peninsula in conjunction with Runanga government agencies, and we now have a rich pool of data for better environmental management of the area. Pest control management throughout the Canterbury, huge effort in terms of wild and conifer control programs and wallaby control programs as well. The Canterbury Water Management Strategy Committees completed about 63 projects across Canterbury. So I'm just really conveying the huge amount of work that's been done and achieved throughout Canterbury. And in terms of the financial situation, just a summary sheet I had of, go back to the beginning, just really to reiterate that the year-end financial performance shows a draft operating surplus of 1.58 million compared to 0.49 million surplus anticipated. So that's really good as well. And overall, we've achieved 36 of the 40 levels of service, an achievement rate of 90%, which is an increase from the 75% in 22-23. So some really good things here, and so that's my comments and my sort of takeaways from that. Are there any councillors who wish to add to that? Graham?
It's a very comprehensive annual report, and it'd be remiss of us not to recognise the efforts of staff right across the organisation through Stephanie there in putting together this annual report. Focus, of course, ends up being on the numbers, but this is actually a report that's bringing forward all of the activities that have been done by all of the staff, right from the most junior staff right through to the most senior staff members. So just express thanks for all the effort that's gone in. We have got through clearly in time with our statutory deadlines to get it all through, and obviously Audit New Zealand has worked through the processes there. We look forward to your recommendations in due course, and it's generally we should just be grateful that we've got to this stage in good shape, and that's a team effort.
Yeah, kia ora. I've got a couple of notes that I wrote down, but you've covered most of them. Thanks, Councillor Edge. But one thing I wanted to say was it was really pleasing to see that 90% of the levels of service were achieved this year, which was up from about 75 last financial year. So that's a huge win for the organisation, actually. It's been some testing time, so I think that's something that the organisation should take away and go, you know what, we've actually achieved some really good stuff and we're on the right track. Obviously, there's always lots more to do, and we're always getting something coming to us that will take our focus. But I think at the end of the day, and I hate using that term, there's some really good stuff. So thanks, Stephanie, for your work and everybody for bringing that together. And the only other one thing I'm going to, from all the notes that I wrote here, was the public transport part. There was a little graph there from 1990 to from 2024. It's the first time I've seen a graph of bus patron numbers from 1990, or from going back to pre-earthquake. And it's really cool to see that trend upwards, and it is really clear to see that it is now the highest number of patronage since the earthquakes on a new service. And I think that's a good, that's the stuff that we should be picking out with our comms team. There's a whole lot of information in here that our comms team could just push out there for the next whole year, I suppose, and just stuff that we're doing. So good work, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the council seeing it.
Kia ora, te mana. There's an interesting whakatauki which goes waiho mā te tangata e mihi. And what that means is that basically leave your praises for someone else. And that someone else is actually us, the governors. So I tautoko the praises and the acknowledgements from members of this committee, and also Graham as well. And it's all been said, acknowledging from our C down, through our management teams and also our kaimahi. I just hope actually that, and it really happens, but a lot of the positive work that is done here hopefully will be picked up in the media as to the good work that we do here, because what we've got so far in a lot of ways is a lot of negativity, sensationalism and all of that, whereas the real work of this council has been reflected actually in this annual report. So kia ora to Audit New Zealand as well, and to our staff and the leadership. mai tautoko other members, and thank you to our tiamana who articulated well the good work that's been done. E mihi atu.
Kia ora, thank you very much. Any other councillors? Just two things. Oh,
Look, I'll save some other summaries for when it comes to council. I think in a few weeks' time. But just want to tautoko all the acknowledgements, starting with Grant and Graham and going around the room, Dion and Nook, to Stephanie and the staff on all the work that's done, and reflect those sentiments about. Let's hope those. I was saying to my wife last night, I think there's like 1,000 things that we probably do that are good every day, and about one bad thing we do maybe once a month or once a year, but they're the ones that get picked up in the media. So I'm hoping those 1,000 things can get a bit more coverage. But as we know, they don't make the best stories in the newspaper. But hopefully we can just keep pushing on through our own social media channels, all of these great things that are in this report. So thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Two more things from me. One of them is page 82, which gives a statement of service performance policies and critical judgments and assumptions, and it describes how we have sought through external survey opinions from the public about how they see us, and that's a pretty good report card from that respect. And of course, as from July the 1st, we entered a new era of the way that we do business within Environment Canterbury in terms of looking at three core components of our business, and that's we're now getting into that, and it's steaming along. So all of those changes are all good for the future. So thanks, members. So look, I'll put the motions. And we have the mover and seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you very much. So the next meeting will be on of the committee will be on the 20th. Just to get that right, 20th of November. 20th of November for the committee, and of course this report will come to full council on the 23rd of October. Thank you very much. I'll call the meeting to a close, and the Karakia, I think, can carry over till later into the day. Thanks very much, Councillor Swiggs. Thank you.